Thank you for coming to Astra Film with such a touchy subject. We are in Eastern Europe, and you are coming with a very strong message, very relevant for the area. Tell us something about the interest you had in mind when starting to document this problem.
I approached the director of the theater play, Oliver Frljić, with a question to be at his rehearsals, but I did not expect that I will make the film, the whole film on the rehearsals, because I did not know that I will meet Nina, a young girl who became a main character of the film. But even before discovering that I have the whole film on the rehearsals, what I wanted to do is I wanted to make a film about the fact that in Croatia we have many different memories of what happened in the 90s and what was like that, what was to live in Yugoslavia before. But at this present moment there is only one national narrative that is acceptable in the public. So there is no discussion from the different sides about what happened in the 90s, at least not in official media. It's reserved for internet and for some smaller media. But it seems that if you want to be a politician or if you want to be in a mainstream media, you have to repeat one and the same truth, and the same story, which is not shared by all the citizens of Croatia. And then we have this absurd situation that there are people living next door to each other and having completely different experience of what happened during the 90s or before. But one of them has to keep their experience undercover, hidden, you know. And Oliver Frljić was making a theater play about one of the such incidents where in the center of Zagreb was killed a civilian family, and the youngest member of the family was a girl of 12 years, and they were killed because they were Serbs in Zagreb in the 90s. And this horrible crime was never punished in court, although the killers were found and they admitted to the crime, but they were, through some legal process, their admission was not accepted in court and they were released. And another horrible thing is that the killers were members of the Croatian police, reserve police at the time. So this was one of the cases that tells about the chaos that was here in the 90s, and then there was victims on many sides, not only on one side. But in today's Croatia, it's acceptable only to talk about Croatian victims who were Croats. So that was my basic interest for the topic. But I wanted to make the film about the present time, but how in the present time, although from the 90s and from the war, although it was more than 25 years, and although there are some new generations that were born long after the war are already adults, still we share some problems from that time.
So the tension it's still present in the Croatian society?
I'm really sorry to say that the tension is getting stronger with the time. It's not relieving, it's getting stronger. And it's not the simple why is that happening. This is a really complex answer to that question. This is somebody who is I think, sociologist should give, not me as a film director. But what I can say is that again, you cannot point finger just in one direction. I think responsibility for this situation comes from many directions, and that's what makes it a complex problem.
Do you think that this psychodramatic approach of a conflict can be healing?
I believe that talking openly is the most healing part, so not hiding, but admitting to everything that has happened and dealing with that, and try to deal what is very, very difficult to many people in Croatia, and I think Croatia is just one of the countries in the world that share the same problem, is for people to deal with complexity of democratic society. And that means that in democratic society we don't all think the same, and there are very conflicting opinions, experiences, but for democratic society it is a good thing. But I think many people in Croatia want a simpler society that's not democratic really. They want a society where only one opinion is accepted and only one experience is accepted. And if you don't share that opinion and if you don't share this experience, you should be quiet and keep it to yourself. And it's even said openly by some politicians that they want country where you can publicly speak only official truth. And if you have another opinion, you should keep it for yourself. This is not a democratic society, but after 28 years of democracy, some political parties obviously in Croatia does not want to have democracy anymore. They want to go back to the times when it was not possible to speak differently. And these are right-wing parties, to make it very clear. Yeah.
What do you think about the capacity of a documentarist to write history and to reveal historical facts?
It's complex questions in today's world, because we live in a hyper media world where everybody are creating something, So it's so there are so many films made and videos and YouTube and blogs, and that I don't think that there is one film that can be considered like this is history. And I don't try to do that with my films. What I try to do with my film is to give, for today's audience, to give them an experience that is emotional experience that makes them maybe deal a little bit easier with today's world. And that's all I hope for. And what will happen with my film in 10 or 20 years? Will it be watched, or will it be somewhere on a digital garbage, with millions of other films? I don't really know, and I cannot care about that. Yeah.
Did you have any feedback from the two sides, the Serbian and Croatian?
For now, this film was made for Croatian public, because it's very Croatian film. It talks about very Croatian problem, about status of minorities, including Serbian minority, but not exclusively Serbian minority, in Croatian society today. So right now its film is in a cinema distribution in Croatia. I get very enthusiastic reviews by many people, and I then get some extremely hateful comments from the right-wing media that has not watched the film at all. It's very obvious from their texts that because they completely miss the point, what is it about. But this is something I expected. And then there is Serbia, which is another country, and which I was quite hesitating to show film there, because also what happened, what I read on the internet, that some Serbian right-wing medias used the film also without seeing it to fuel hatred against Croats. So at one moment I said I don't want to show this film in Serbia at all. This is not film for Serbian audience. Serbian audience should watch films about position of minorities in Serbian society, not about minorities in Croatian society. But then I changed my mind, because there is a great festival called Free Zone, Slobodna Zona in Belgrade, that was organized by my friends and great people who understand completely the issues and complexity of this whole story. And they will show the film, but they will also organize a panel where we will discuss the position of minorities in other Balkan countries as well. So not to make it a place to bash only one small piece of the problem, which is position of Serbs in Croatia.
How you can integrate the idea of the movie in the tendency of Europe, in the tendency of pushing back the right wing?
Well, what right wing wants to do in Europe, it's not a secret. You can read it in interviews, in newspapers. They want to destroy European Union and they want to destroy the idea of European Union. That means they want to close the borders, to make small nationalistic states with very conservative values, where anyone who is minority, either national minority or sexual minority or political minority or any other kind of minority, will be discriminated, basically. That's the vision of Europe by extreme right wing that, as we see, is getting stronger. I don't believe that this is the vision of European people, if I may say like that. And I don't believe it's going to happen. But obviously, there are some tendencies and that are fueled by some real problems that we have in European Union, and these real problems are not addressed in the right way either by left wing, obviously. So what happens in Croatia now is very typical for the Western world, with some uniqueness that we have, because we had also war, which the other Western countries did not have in 90s. But I would say I think this is why the film is understood all over Europe, is because that everybody recognizes pieces of their own situation in this film as well.
So do you think that somehow it's old-fashioned, the nationalistic idea, it's somehow old-fashioned for 2018?
I'm a big believer in open borders. That doesn't mean negating nations, because one of the beauties of Europe are differences between the nations, obviously, and between cultures and between histories. But I don't believe in exclusivity of one nation in any town or in any country, because I believe in multiculturalism, also in mixing of cultures, in free travel for everybody, and I think that idea of European Union is something very precious that should be protected by any means possible.
So rather diversity than unity.
Yeah. Yeah, diversity is, for example, Zagreb for years, my hometown where I lived my whole life, was very monochromatic, I would say, so it was, we did not have many foreigners at all, and we did not have different races in Zagreb, and it's a very, I would even say, boring place to live.
Tell me something about the distribution of minorities. What kind of minority groups are in
Croatia?
In Croatia.
Throughout history, we had a large Serbian minority in Croatia that was an integral part of Croatian society. It was, I think, I cannot tell you exact number, but I think more than 10% of inhabitants of Croatia were Serbs, and some of the very important figures from Croatian history were of Serbian origin, like, for example, Nikola Tesla, great inventor, who was born in Croatia, but he was Serb by nationality. But what happened in the 90s that in parts of Croatia that were mostly inhabited by Serbs rebelled against the new Croatian state, and after 5 years of war, happened a big exodus by Serbians. So most of the Serbians, especially from rural, most of Serbs, especially from rural parts, left Croatia, and now there are only a couple of percent of Serbs living in Croatia, mostly in bigger towns like Zagreb and Split and Rijeka. And what is a little bit shown in my film as well is that today many Serbs in Croatia are hiding their true identity, they're hiding their nationality because they still feel unease even 25 years after the war has ended. And the responsibility for that, as I say, are on many sides, not only on a Croatian side, but it's a complex story to talk about. And of course we have other smaller minorities like Czechs, Germans, Roma people, but in a very small percentage.
And the conflict only involves the Serbian minority.
Serbian minority is the most exposed minority because still today word Serb in Croatia sometimes is sound as offensive word, you know, but we can talk about other minorities as well, not only national minorities. We can talk about sexual minorities, but also I think we can talk about political minorities, people who share some views that are not compatible with the main stream narrative, national narrative, you know, and it becomes also dangerous in Croatia to have different opinions than what national narrative is pushing. And a good example for that is another character from my film, Oliver Frdić, the director, who dared to speak publicly to question a national narrative, Croatian national narrative. And what he got for that are death threats, are personal attacks, and none of the ministers or prime minister or president stood in his defense, you know. So the state did not send him the message, you're safe to speak your mind, you know. And now Oliver is not working anymore in Croatia. I'm not saying that he fled because he was afraid of the attack, because he does the same thing wherever he goes, you know. He provokes the public to rethink the difficult taboo topics, you know. But it's true that him, who is a great artist, was basically not accepted in Croatia just because he thinks differently than the national narrative is. You know.
Tell us something about the Astra film experience for you. What means for you being here?
This is my first time to be here in Sibiu on Astra Film Festival, but this is not my first film that has been shown here. I already was present with my first feature, Gangster of Love, a couple of years ago. And I wanted to come here because I knew that this is the most important Romanian festival, but also one of the most important documentary festivals in this part of Europe. And I was not disappointed a little bit, you know. It completely fulfilled my expectations, because what I've seen here is a great program, extremely a strong competition with some excellent films, and a great selection, I would say, as well. So this is a place that really gives a great, how to say, great look through the last year in documentaries from all over the world. So I'm very happy to have a chance to present my film here in such an exclusive, I would say, company. Yeah.
Tell me something about the national background of your family, and if there was any different opinions about ethnicity in your family.
In my family, I have an example that shows how mixed Croatia is and how it's difficult, how nationalities in Croatia is quite an arbitrary thing. So I'm a Croat. I'm a Croat because my father is a Croat and my mother is a Croat. So my both parents are Croats, but my father was from the mixed marriage. His mother was Serbian and his father was Croatian. So my grandfather and grandmother had two children, my father and my aunt, and they decided to make them different nationalities. So they gave to my father Croatian nationality and they gave to my aunt Serbian nationality because it's just the decision that you write in when you're born. So my father and my aunt are brother and sister. My aunt died, but we're brother and sister, but they were from different nationalities. So if they decided that my father would be Serbian, then maybe I today would say that I'm a Serbian. They decided that my father is Croatian, and then I'm a Croat. So I have a part of my family that are Serbs. Also, this is quite arbitrary thing, but that's how they feel now.
Do you think that nationality it's a piece of paper, that it's proving something, or it's a different education or different sets of values?
Well, it's whatever people makes of it, you know, because it is identity, and it's identity that you can choose in Balkans, because I wouldn't say that it's some right-wingers think that Croats are genetically different than Serbs. They're not, you know. We are basically very the same, you know. So, but I think everybody should have a freedom to choose what they want to be and how they would feel. Do they want to declare themselves Croats or Serbs or Martians? You know, it's up to them, you know. But nobody should tell them what they are and how they should act because they are what they are, you know. So it is a piece of paper, but a personal piece of paper that is quite important for many people, and nobody should interfere in that.
What do you think is the limitation in between who you want to be and who are you told to be?
Well, of course, we have many pre-written roles in our society, you know, about not only about nationalities, but also about what the man should look like and how, or what the woman should look like, you know, or about sexism and again, these roles are made to make society more simple for people, and I don't think the societies should be simple. I think the societies should be complex, and that we should, all of us should learn to accept complexity, you know, to accept nuances, you know, to accept differences. I know for some people it's too much. Some people want very simple society where the man is man and where the woman is woman and where the Croat is Croat and where the Serb is Serb, you know. But I think these kind of people should really try better. The ideals of the European Union are not going to happen on their own, you know. It's not like we now have European Union, so we can relax and do our other stuff, you know. Because if we do that, then what will happen? It's either European Union would fall apart, or it would get some ideals that are completely different, you know. Because again, like everything in life, if we don't care about things, they go rotten, you know. So it's the same thing with European Union, both from inside and from outside. It will get rotten if we don't nourish it every day, you know, all of us.
What do you expect as a lifespan of a European Union from looking from Croatia to Europe?
It's hard to say, because in the country where I was born and where I live my whole life, actually I changed a couple of countries already in my not so short but not so long life. And in Balkans, it's rare for a country to last for more than 40 or 50 years. You know, it did not happen since, I think, Habsburg monarchy. You know, so judging by that, something will change again quite soon. You know, but I hope we will be smarter this time, and try not to do revolutions but evolutions.